I'm Kim Burden with the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce and the Qualicum Beach Chamber of Commerce, and we are doing a series of interviews with candidates in the federal election so that we can present our members with their views on a number of business topics. These will also be going out to the general public, and we're encouraging people to get out on September 20th and make sure that your vote counts. I'm with Mary Lee from the Federal Conservative Party. Hello, Mary.
Hello. How are you, Kim?
And we're going to start our conversation looking at one of the number one business issues in this region, and that is the lack of employees. Businesses in the Parksville-Qualicum region are experiencing a significant challenge finding employees. Can you tell me what steps can the federal government take to encourage people to return to work?
Well, securing jobs is most definitely one of the 5 pillars in Canada's recovery plan, the Conservative Party's plan to recover and secure the future. And here in Courtenay, Alberni, yes, tourism makes up a significant portion of our industry because it is one of the most sought-after areas in Canada for vacation destination. And food services, for example, and hospitality is an integral part of that sector. And we're seeing such a mass exodus of employees in those regions. Restaurants can't keep employees, and this is having a detrimental effect on those small business owners who are struggling to keep their livelihood alive, let alone thriving. Canada has an incentive, and it's called the Canada Job Surge Plan, to get Canadians back to work. The Conservative government will pay up to 25% of a salary for new hires for 6 months after what we have right now, the employee wage subsidy expires, and then up to 50% for those employees' salaries that have been unemployed for up to 6 months or more. The Conservatives also recognize that a lot of our jobs, particularly in our area, are in rural areas where it's hard to get high-speed internet, and we rely on high-speed internet to be able to carry out our jobs. So the Conservatives' plan is to bring high-speed internet to rural Canada by 2025. The Liberals and the NDP and the Green, unfortunately, do not have the plan to get Canada back to work. And even before the pandemic, what we were seeing was that we had a struggling economy, one of the worst economies we've had probably since the Great Depression. We have so many great plans and details for getting Canada back to work. The details are in Canada's recovery plan, which was launched on day 2 of the campaign. And it was the Conservatives' way of letting Canadians know that there was a plan and to give them the opportunity to read the plan, skim over it, and then drill down into those areas that really matter most, particularly jobs, and then make a sound decision before voting. So I encourage you to see that plan, read through the plan, and better understand how we want to get Canada back to work with the incentives. And that plan you can find on my website at maryleecpc.ca.
So tied to employment is the housing shortage, and in particular what we call workforce, attainable, affordable workforce housing. Mm-hmm. It's difficult for people who are living on the sort of $17 to $20 an hour jobs, which are typical in the service industry, to find housing in this area. So what is the Conservative plan to make housing more available and more affordable?
Most certainly, housing, of course, we know is driven a lot by basic economics. It's the supply and the demand. And we simply do not have enough houses for our growing populations, and particularly our growing populations that are coming to this part of the region because it is such an attractive place to live and to work. So Canada's Conservatives recognize that the rising house costs can be largely addressed by removing those barriers that are preventing more houses to come onto the market by working with municipalities and by working with the provinces. There's also another factor that's coming in, and that's a lot of foreign money is coming into the region, and that's driving up housing prices. So the Conservatives recognize that this is making housing affordability near impossible for more and more Canadians. And so they're proposed to place a ban on all foreign ownership for any foreign buyers that have no intent of living here in Canada. Some of the gems that I read in the plan that were quite attractive is, of course, to see that they have a plan to build 1 million homes over the next 3 years. And then the federal government wants to have a complete review. The Conservatives have recognized we need to make a complete review of all federally owned properties, of which there's more than, this was shocking, 37,000 buildings owned by federal government. And so the plan is to release at least 15% to turn that over to become homes. One important thing, and this is near and dear to me because I want to be able to see my daughter have a chance to have our home. So it's the pathway to home ownership, whereby we'll remove some of the challenges to get a mortgage. And one such challenge is the stress test. And this one is really important, particularly for those who have earned their money in hardworking Canadians, earned their income and invested into their own home and have probably made quite a sizable increase in the value of their home. Well, Canada's Conservative will never tax capital gains on the primary residence. That is something that we're hearing being threatened by the Liberal government, and that is not something that the Conservative government will allow to have happen, because that is our nest egg. So I applaud also what we're seeing in our communities is a lot of communities are stepping up to help with home development and building homes. New home building projects with Habitat for Humanity, for example. That is just one way that communities are getting behind in the region to help with home building. And the Conservatives share that same mission that Habitat for Humanity has, and that is that everybody deserves a safe and affordable and a decent place to call home. And so I really want to see the opportunity to get behind these companies, these organizations, these build organizations in the community, because not only are they providing an opportunity for people to have a home, but the build project in itself is creating a sense of community, and that to me is the epitome of what being a Canadian is all about, helping one another.
So you talked a little bit about, well, you made a promise about taxation. Which is another significant issue in terms of small business in this region and across Canada. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce has been calling on the federal government for some time now to hold a comprehensive independent tax system review to sort of get rid of the cut and paste approach that's gone on in terms of how tax policy is created. Will you commit to a comprehensive independent tax system review?
Oh, most certainly. And I applaud the Conservatives for recognizing that. Most definitely they're committed to launch a comprehensive tax system review. I have a small business. I'm a taxpayer. And under the Justin Trudeau government, small businesses continue to get hounded. I was a victim of it, and it took forever. And I want fairness more than anybody, particularly our small businesses. So this was really exciting to hear this news. So the Conservatives will make a taxpayer ombudsman, and this is going to be an officer in Parliament that has order-making authority. They want to measure and report on all tax gaps in detail, by type, and reason for these shortfalls. And this is a similar system that's being used in the United Kingdom. And they want to impose a duty of care for CRA, which impresses me too. Duty of care and CRA, wonderful. But the Canadian Conservatives will also launch, to help our small businesses, what's called a Rebuild Main Street tax credit, by which 25% of a tax credit on amounts up to $100,000 that Canadians can personally invest back into small businesses over the next 2 years. And this is a beautiful incentive, a strong incentive for Canadians to invest their money to help entrepreneurs rebuild our country. And some little out-of-the-box thinking, which I think is really clever and is going to help our Canadian business retail owners, because we saw during the pandemic that a lot of people turned to e-commerce, and our small retailers, Canadian retailers, suffered because of that. So we have what's coming up in December, a GST holiday, where there'll be no GST on purchases made throughout the month of December. And again, these are just small ways that Canadians are getting behind Canadians to help each other as we rebuild the economy through jobs, lower taxes, less government, more freedom. You can find it all in the plan, which is on my website at maryleecpc.ca.
That sounds like good news for small business. Let's talk a little bit about Canada's resource economy. The resource economy remains a fundamental driver of Canada's economic growth. The post-COVID world is going to be shaped by the fortunes of our resource sector. And what forward-looking government policies will you implement to unlock growth and meet our climate targets?
Well, this is really quite exciting because this is where we really see some of the climate initiatives of the Conservative government come into play, and identifying that the resource sector has a huge role to play in that. They're an integral part of that solution. So we see here in our local region, Courtenay, Alberni, that two resource sectors are agriculture and forestry, and that not only are they vital to kickstart the economy, get it going in the right direction for the future, but they play a positive role toward meeting our climate targets. And so the Conservative government will create a powerful incentive for both agriculture and forestry sectors to protect the environment and sequester carbon by allowing greater creation of land-based offset credits. They want to invest an additional $3 billion between now and 2030 in natural climate solutions that are focused on the management of forest, crop and grazing lands, as well as the restoration of grasslands and wetlands and the forests. Because not only do they help sequester more carbon, but they also provide protection for communities as well as added benefits for wildlife. And the Conservatives see that there's a massive potential for the future of the forestry industry. Forestry is well placed to be an important contributor to fight against climate change. So our forestry sector, that alone, it provides so many jobs. It's one of the largest job providers in our country, directly employing 230,000 jobs and indirectly another 600,000. So, and this sector is also one of Canada's largest employers to the Indigenous peoples, with over 1,400 Indigenous-owned businesses actively working in the forestry sector across the country. So we recognize that forestry and agriculture too, has a huge potential to be part of the Conservatives' climate change plan. It's called Secure the Environment. The resource industries also play an integral part in being part of the implementation as a solution. And you can find that in what's called the National Clean Energy Strategy, which is all part of Canada's plan to secure the future, Canada's recovery plan.
Thank you so much for this. This has been a great opportunity for you to get your message out to people, and a great opportunity for people to get to know a little bit more about what you're thinking and what your plans are should you be successful in your election run. We wish you well, and more than anything, we want to encourage people to get out and vote on September the 20th and in the early election opportunities leading up to September 20th. So thank you, Mary, and we wish you the best.
Thank you, Kim. It's been a pleasure.